Well, good morning, West Coast and Central U.S., and good afternoon to the East Coast and everybody in between. My name is Brad Etheridge. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for the Center for Tax Strategies and Resources. For those of you not too familiar with us, we are a membership-based organization. Some people have said we're similar to a study group on steroids. Our members have access to some phenomenal talent from our industry, including top CPAs and tax attorneys, as well as top producers in just about every area or field related to financial services. And folks join our group to have access to those people, as well as gain training on techniques, proper words and timing, closing, better ways to market your practice. Kind of like a virtual sales office for our members. Today is an example of that. Leading up to our Academy events, we always do a series of webinars, or what we refer to as kind of vignettes, where it gives you a little bit of an idea of the type of talent that our members have access to. Today will be no exception to that. As the members know, this won't be a complete webinar with all the answers and facts, because we really like folks to be members to get all that. For the members of our organization that have joined this call to brush up on the topics, remember you can view the entire webinar on our website through the member portal. For those of you that are guests, we'll jump in a little bit later and kind of give you a little better understanding of what it takes to be a member, why somebody would want to join, and the other tools and talent that you'd have access to help grow your practice to the next level. So with that, I certainly hope you enjoy the webinar. Again, I'm Brad Etheridge, Chief Marketing Officer, and we are so proud to have you on our webinar here today. Thanks.
All right. Well, so today I'm gonna kind of bring it down a little bit, Stuffy, and I'm gonna leave some room for some conversation and certainly your questions. Maybe if you want to channel a little bit, but I've got some agenda of items I wanted to talk about. Obviously, with my this kind of come late with you guys, and I had a lot of commitments, and so I prepared while being here in San Diego this presentation. And much of what I'm going to share today will be attempted in a methodical way to show you live in software, because none of this really matters until we see how it actually applies in real life. And the best way I know to do that, though, there's techniques of showing things in live software that is helpful where you get it, and if you do it wrong or you do it too fast, then it's not helpful at all. So we'll try to accommodate today by making sure that we go slow, and then we can answer questions. But I want to focus on framing the power of tax planning and retirement. Obviously, it's my topic and the topic I'm noted for. And I know these topics of estate planning, which we do in our practice, that have been covered so far, far more technical in nature. I want to talk about some of the more simple things we miss. And so this is a story, the subtitle, Story of Traditional Investments Together with Insurance Product Allocation and Alternative Options That We Don't Always Think About. So with that, let's get kind of teed up on what the frame slides are going to be. And it's just a constant reminder that whatever process we have, we must have a process that's repeatable every time. We can't reinvent the wheel each time. We have to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. Obviously, our first meeting is to create a connection and not just believe that we've connected, but make sure that we know the client has felt heard, because we're trying to sell our services so they hire us for the second meeting, which becomes discovery. And then our back office analytics work on testing all of that based on our expertise. And then we present them compelling pictorial and framing content about where they were going versus where they could be going to show the value of who we are. And so it's a client-driven process that can be live or virtual, either one, that uses not just numbers, but pictorial contrast. And when we can show them and tell them and verify it mathematically, then it becomes quite powerful. And so we're going to talk about our dashboard and how we back them into a corner of knowledge, and how we create that urgency that stops procrastination. What's the cost of delaying this decision to work with you? Because even if I'm 10 years from retirement, there's a significant cost every single month I delay not acting on something. And some months, depending on where interest rates are going and a host of other things, the cost could be dramatic. Just a single month of delay And so we've got to be able to contrast that to create urgency so that they stop this procrastination. So we're going to stand out from our competition with this client-driven process. We're going to be very consultative in our actions and words we say. And we're going to do that by asking. Stuffy's the man about great questions. If I've learned anything from Stuffy over the years, it's the questions. I remember him saying to me one time at a Form 400 meeting that a good law case is won by great discovery and good questions. You can win and lose a case by your questions. Ask the wrong question, you lose. Ask the best question, shut up and let them answer, you win. And then it's to educate in a way that is compelling. And so realizing that we have 3 basic retirement income strategies to pick from, I want you to be convinced that there's a hybrid of blending these that makes this far more exciting than just these 3. But there's the systematic withdrawal income plan, which was used for years, and then the buckets of laddered progressive time segmentation, and the floor. And oftentimes, we as advisors pick, and depending on your bends and biases against products, you may pick one believing you've picked the most efficient strategy when in fact you haven't. And so obviously, because we have software that's so dynamic at so many levels, what we can't deny anymore is the truth about what the math shows. And that is 80% plus more of the time, when I do a hybrid of combining these 3 things together for my clients, especially my high net worth, it's a much more efficient, powerful strategy than singly picking either or any one of these by themselves as a sole strategy. So don't get confused or don't get convinced that one or the other is better. It's a combo of being able to bring them together for the highest level of efficiency. And this is one of the biggest things that I say to clients, because as an asset manager, not just an insurance practitioner, oftentimes folks out there believe that managing assets is a commodity. It's not. It's not a commodity. And here's my typical answer when my receptionist calls me to the front desk when somebody's just gotten off the elevator on my 6th floor and asked the question, I'm shopping for advisors. I'm not real happy with the one I got. What do you charge to manage assets? I come out and I let them repeat their question. I know what their question is going to be. And here's my response. Well, let me ask you this question. Most financial practitioners are focused on touting their highest average performance. The question is it the gross average performance that matters, or is it the gross average performance net of fee drag, tax drag, and inflation drag? It's the amount you actually get to keep. And what if I told you that in our practice, that in your retirement, 50% of the profits you will experience, and I'm not overstating this at all, will be tax mitigation, fee drag mitigation, and inflation mitigation, all 3. So if you're dealing with an advisor that just focuses on touting their best gross performance as compared to their counterparts, and they're completely not focused on mitigation of tax, fees, and inflation, then you're going to get about 50% of the gains that you keep that you're not going to get when advisors are focused on both asset management but net of what you keep. So that's the first thing I want you to know, Mr. Prospective Client. And the second thing I want you to know, based on the way we actually build income, liquidity, and growth, it works out that about 40 to 50% of the assets that we utilize in your portfolio to build that retirement plan have no fee drag whatsoever, no ongoing fee drag at all. Well, that means if I take the totality of your portfolio, if that's true, just to keep math simple, and I'm charging 1% to manage assets, not only are you getting a double benefit of the work that we do, but your composite fee drag ends up being about half of what most advisors are charging. So I want you to know that the way things are done are quite different here than maybe the next 5 folks down the street. Now, they haven't a clue what you just said, but what you said separated you so far from the competition that they're curious. And I will tell you that that response takes them off of their heels or puts them on their heels either way. in a way that gives me more conversations that continue than those that just kick tires and want to ask that question. So that's kind of where it all starts for us. And because, and this is all about the tax center, the efficiency of tax becomes one of the most critical elements in all of this. So just a quick reminder, I shared this the last time. I'm teeing up to get to real case studies where we can dig into today's content. But there are 4 tax classes of money. I used to talk about 3, but I'm going to talk about 4 now. And the first one is obviously all the money goes in pre-tax. We know what these assets look like. Everything comes out taxed, and that's all our qualified dollars. And the next bucket is everything goes in after tax, and there's a host of things that can be even more than the list listed here: mutual funds, stocks, bonds, annuities. But boy, there's a whole lot of different tax spigots involved. And the one that's always missed is exclusion ratio tax treatment. And what's the power of that? And what's the power of distribution rate over performance rate? Big difference. And so we got to consider there's more to the equation of tax if we're understanding all the different ways taxes can apply than just long-term capital gain, short-term capital gain, ordinary income tax. And of course, things that come out of this spigot, our growth is taxed, except obviously there's some rules around long-term capital gains if your income's below a certain level, et cetera. The third bucket is everything goes in after tax. And there's 2 basic types of investment allocations that can be true for this asset class. And they, if done properly, can be completely tax-free upon distribution. And then the 4th class, which I've distinguished separately now, is everything goes in pre-tax if done correctly. It grows tax deferred, and if used for the right reasons that the IRS allowed, it's now fully tax-free. And the broader I can blend the portfolio between these classes of assets, either during their working years or in the precursor of the 10 years prior to the retirement, or even if I start figuring out a way to blend with Roth conversions and life insurance purchases at retirement, assuming they're healthy and they're still young enough prior to age 72 and before taking Social Security election, there's a ton I can do to continue to blend their portfolio before actual full retirement to actually blend the assets amongst these classes at some level. And the more of the classes I can blend these assets, the more tax control that I can provide for them.
Well, this seemed like a pretty good place to kind of jump in. Hope you're enjoying the program so far. You know, I've been doing this for 37 years, and I absolutely love our industry, and so does the rest of the team at the center. That's one thing we all have in common. We don't really feel like we have to work for a living because we enjoy what we do. Question I've got for you in the audience is, when is the last time a single idea added $50,000 or 100 or 150 or $300,000 to your practice revenue? Think about it a minute and realize that our members can say that they have that happen on a very regular basis. The reason folks join our group is to get ideas and concepts and training and techniques and better ways to market their practice. This is a very interesting organization because we don't have an axe to grind. This isn't an IMO hiding as a training organization. It's a training organization that just happens to know a lot about our business. We have an event coming up called the Academy. We're going to be holding it toward the end of January, early part of February. We'll announce the date shortly. That is a 3-day program where we bring in unbelievable talent. They will bring new ideas and concepts and techniques and tools to double or triple your practice revenue. If you join or if you don't join our organization, you walk away with ideas that can add a lot of zeros to your practice revenue. So pay attention to the announcements at the very end. We'll give you an email address too if you want to ask some questions about what you've heard, or if you want to find out a little bit more about why somebody would become a member or try to become a member of our group, or a little bit more about the Academy. You can reach out to me. We'll make sure we've got my email address up there. So enjoy the rest of your program.
And so, again, another reminder slide, not going to spend any time on this, but we have a 3-meeting process. Meeting 1 is just getting to the heart of the matter of the connection. And then it's talking about what keeps them up at night, the 5 top fears, and then educating them once they have felt heard to the 5 risks discussion. And during that meeting, very important to remind everyone that we do not talk about products. The last thing we're going to do is talk about products. Only if something in their own portfolio comes up will we talk about products, and only the products they already have. And meeting 2 is now they've hired us, they're paying our fee if we're licensed to charge those fees, and we now are into discovery, meeting 2. And when we're in discovery, we're not talking about products anymore or at all. And we're not talking about products unless in discovery talking about their products. But again, another meeting where we are not talking about tools. We're listening, we're asking these great questions, and we're getting the intel we need to back them ultimately into a corner of where they were going versus where they could be. And then we get to meeting 3, where we've done all that work, we've done all the testing, we've done it dynamic to Medicare Part B, the IRMA, the MAGI, how much of the provisional income in the Social Security that's taxable, Roth conversion, Social Security delay timing, and not just in the 3rd dimension, but in the 5th dimension. And we're going to do all this heavy lifting. Housing wealth, what's the advantage or disadvantage of even focusing on housing wealth? And we're going to, at the end of the day, contrast a pictorial and mathematical story of the difference between where they were going and the value of the advice that we're able to give. And then we're going to, assuming they want to implement, provide them a step-by-step call to action to implement that. And at the same time, we're going to be able to contrast the cost if they delay even a month away, so that they create urgency and they're acting as quickly as possible. So what's this all about today? It's all about the basket of products approach. And I always love talking about the mechanic, because, you know, if you buy a Cadillac from the Cadillac dealership and you bring your Cadillac car into the service manager 2 years after you bought brand new with a squeaky right wheel, and he takes it back to the bay where the mechanic is working, he sees that beautiful Cadillac. Here's the problem. Imagine if he went to his toolbox and he grabbed his 3 favorite tools. Doesn't even know what's the problem, hasn't taken the wheel off yet, but he's so excited, he runs out in the vestibule where he's drinking coffee and eating a glazed donut, and he starts talking about his 3 favorite tools. Now, he's got 1,000 tools in that Matco Snap-on toolbox that's wall to wall to the ceiling, but boy, he's got them 3 favorite tools. Well, metaphorically, think about it. Isn't that what happens a lot of times in our arena, in the financial services world, where advisors have these 3 or 4 or 5 tools? They don't want to talk about anything else. They don't want to talk about those tools, but they haven't even diagnosed the problem yet. And so I want to suggest that when we consider all of our tools, we need to know what the tools do, how they impact, what are the fact patterns that make the tools together or apart become powerful to answering and solving the problems mathematically for fee drag, tax drag, and inflation drag, and growing their assets, giving them liquidity and a lifetime worth of income they can sleep well at night for, and see them as tools and not as a product exclusively to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because literally there are hundreds of tools in our hands, and until we diagnose like the mechanic would do, we don't even know what the right tools are until we've done the discovery. We've asked all the right questions. So that's one scenario of the mechanic, and it's ridiculous. Mechanics don't do that. Imagine a second scenario. Imagine that a mechanic was really biased to a tool that occasionally he was going to need. And so he does take the time to figure out what tools to get the tire off of the hub. And he gets the hub off and he gets down to the bearing on the spindle and he sees the problem. It's a bearing that's making all the squeaky noise down there. And then he realizes that in order to get the bearing off of that spindle, he needs a bearing puller and ultimately a bearing press, so he doesn't damage the spindle, create more cost to repair it than the simple cost and time to replace that bearing. Now, he runs into the vestibule and he asks the couple to come back to his bay. He points out the problem to him. He shows him his Matco Snap-on toolbox. He brags about the 1,000 tools in there, and then he proclaims his problem to them. You see, in that toolbox, I have every tool necessary, but there's one tool I don't have. You know, I hate bearing pullers. I hate them with the passion. I can't fix the problem here if I don't have a bearing puller. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to take the car somewhere else. I hate bearing pullers. Now that's ridiculous too. Obviously, mechanic isn't gonna cause himself to not have tools he needs to fix all the jobs that come in the door. But isn't that what some financial practitioners are doing? Is they're singling out products. They're simply tools to help us fix a problem based on what is revealed in our discovery in a way as though they're damaging or that they're bad. See, tools are neither good or bad. The tools provide a solution for whatever the tool was designed to do. The good or bad of a tool is the simple understanding of whether we're applying it to a proper use or an improper use. The tool itself isn't bad. And we must get to the place where we stop being biased to these products, whether it's life insurance or mutual funds or alternative investments or ETFs or annuities. And you know what I'm talking about, Ken Fisher. He singles those products out as a product, that's demonic, and yet he's that mechanic that doesn't have the bearing puller in his Snap-on toolbox to fix the job. And you get what I'm saying. And so I just want to encourage us to see things as tools, understand what they do, how they play with fee drag, how they play with tax drag relative to what the specs are, and the different tax classes represented by the client that we're working on helping at that moment. And that's where taxes come in. So we're going to talk today about 2 case studies, and I'll keep it light, but I will answer some samples of these 5 things. Asset allocation by tax class. There's something really simple that we've discovered by having dynamic programming that we didn't know. So even I am learning every day, as I know each of you are. It's why you're on this webinar, is to learn consistently. Number 2 is, what's the value of an annuity guarantee? And is it really about interest rates? Is it more about mortality rates? Is it more about distribution rates? Those are questions. And 3 is, what about Roth conversions? Where do they fit? And when should we really bump the bracket, but when should we absolutely jump the bracket? And those are some fun discussions. And we've had those with this group before. And 4, how about life insurance as an asset class? What's the value of that? Well, that can be powerful if the specs are correct for the right case in the right way. Life insurance could be amazing. And then 5, what about alternative investments? Now, I don't really have a case study specifically to alternative investments, but I'm going to talk about alternative investments. So since I don't have a case study that really samples that the math and science of that, let me just talk about number 5, and then we'll get into 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the mini webinar here. Again, just a reminder to those of you that are members that are on this webinar, you can go to our member portal on the website, yourctsr.com. Put in your credentials and you can watch the entire video at your leisure and play back parts that you need to have more clarity on. For the rest of you, hope you enjoyed this. Listen, these webinars are done to entice you to find out more about our organization. It is unlike anything that we're aware of in the industry right now, because we don't have a product to push and we're not an IMO pretending not to be. It is about education. It is about building some unity between independents. It is about increasing the marketing for your practice and making you better at what you do, being able to offer your clients better solutions. We like to say that our members are independent but not alone. If you want to find out more about our organization, more about the event I talked to you about earlier, the Academy coming up, I'd be happy to communicate with you electronically. My email's on the screen right now. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll reply to you pretty quickly. And if there's something we can answer questions for you, want to find out more about the upcoming Academy or find out more about membership, please feel free to drop me a line, brad@yourctsr.com, and we'll start up a conversation. I wish you success and health and look forward to seeing you, hopefully seeing most, if not all of you, in Vegas in a couple months.